Okay, in this video I'm going to be going over the two different sections of the Musea Lab API. The first section is going to be the product catalog, how you can download all the various products that we offer. The second section of the video is going to be about creating a lab order. In the description of the video, I'll give the breakdown of when each kind of section starts and ends. I'm going to be using some sites that we've deployed that are publicly available for you. Those are also going to be in the description of this video. The first is the primary documentation link here, docs.stagingmusea.photography. Stagingmusea.photography is our staging site. The subdomain docs is where we house the static documentation. I've also published this Postman collection of API calls. Postman is essentially a tool for interacting with REST APIs. It's an application that you can download for Mac. I believe it also is available on Windows. But if you don't want to use Postman, we've got the curl request examples over here as well. And I'll also be using curl primarily for this. So let's go ahead and get started on the product catalog. The very first endpoint to talk about is the papers endpoint. This is essentially going to provide all the print offerings that we provide. So if you're not interested in getting information about mats and mounts and frames that we offer, this would be the endpoint to hit, because this is going to provide you not only the papers but all the print sizes underneath those papers. Over here you're going to see the request essentially is normal GET request. We've got the URL here. We require 3 headers: accept application JSON, content type application JSON, and then the basic authorization here. This basic authorization is a base 64 encoded username : password. I'm going to show you real quick how you can use just the JavaScript console to get this done. Let's see, we have an example user set up for you. Musea Lab vendor at proofingsite.com is what we use in the documentation. This was created specifically for the documentation. The user is going to be disabled, so you should be using, for example, josh@mymusea.com. Prince Rock. You should be encoding your own user. This will be disabled shortly after this video is published, and we're going to expect people to be using their own username and password that we provide to you when you get started. So you can use the binary to ASCII command in JavaScript console just on any, this is Chrome. You can do this in Safari or Firefox, whatever. That's going to be your base 64 encoded username : password. If you want to, you can also use terminal. I'll use Ruby here just to do this real quick. Okay, and essentially you end up with the same thing. So that's how you would get your username and password here, or for the authorization header. Okay, enough of that. We'll go ahead and copy and paste this onto the command line, just so you can see what it would look like with curl. I'm going to pipe this to JQ so that I get a pretty printed layout. If you just do brew install JQ on a Mac, if you have Homebrew installed, you can get this tool, but you do have to install JQ if you want to use it. So I'm hitting the photographers.stagingmusea.photography endpoint, API v2 products papers endpoint, accept application JSON, got this basic base 64 encoded username and password, which I showed you how to get to previously, and the content type header. So we'll hit that endpoint, and then we'll just briefly look over the response here. So as you can see, Each of these papers has a unique identifier assigned to it. So this GUID or global unique identifier is for each paper type. These GUIDs we use all over the API to essentially construct endpoints for specific IDs of different products, different lab orders, line items, pretty much everything in our API is going to have one of these unique identifiers attached to it, and you'll need to use that unique identifier to call out to different endpoints throughout the API. So it's very important to always take note of what that unique identifier is for the product. So this is the deckled paper. You'll see that every paper is going to have an array object called print size pricings, and that's going to be all the things that we offer for that paper. So you'll see that deckled 7x10 is $23, deckled 5x7 is $11, deckled 8x12 $30, so on and so forth. Then you go on to the next paper, photo mat paper. Once again, it has print size pricings, and then you see all the size there. So that's basically how you would get every print that we offer. Is just hitting this papers endpoint should be enough to get you pretty much all the products that we offer. If you want to offer mats and mounts and frames, essentially you move down to the finishing services for print size, and what you see here is you've still got the products endpoint. This is going to be the unique identifier for a print size. So if you go back to that response that we just looked at, let's just say this is the Hahnemühle 8x12 underneath the Hahnemühle Pearl paper. So we've got the Pearl paper 8x12 that we want to see what all the finishing services are for that 8x12. We would throw that unique identifier into the URL here and then call finishing services on it. That's going to return the mats, the mounts, and the frame options for that Hahnemühle Pearl 8x12. Essentially, for if you were going to offer finishing mats, mounts, and frames, you would need to know how to get to the finishing service ID for each of those. They need to line up whenever you create a lab order. And then finally, the finishing service details. Once you've selected a finishing service, just let's say that you've done an 8x10 mat for that an 8x12 mat for that 8x12 print. You could get the finishing details there and see if you wanted a black or white mount, something like that. You would hit this finishing details endpoint and be able to get the ID for that detail. If you're getting a frame, let's say a cherry wood frame, you would hit the endpoint for the cherry wood frame and get the stain of the wood that you wanted to use on that frame. So that's how you do that. I'll post a video in more detail about that later. The